What's there when you call out my name? Love is in the air. Love is in the air. Love is in the air. In the rising of the sun. Love is in the air. When the day is nearly done. And I don't know if you're an illusion. Don't know if I see it true. But you're something that I must believe in. And you're there when I reach out for you. Love is in the air. Everywhere I look around. Love is in the air. Every sight and every sound. And I don't know if I'm being foolish. Don't know if I'm being wise. But it's something that I must believe in. And that's there when I look in your eyes. Love is in the air. Love is in the air. Oh, 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 oh. Love is in the air, in the whisper of the tree.
Namaste and a very good afternoon, all Tata colleagues, Team Ask Insights, and dear friends from the similar fraternity. Welcome to the day 2 of our diversity and inclusion campaign. Love is all we need, where we talk about demonstrating love through empathy, expressing gratitude, driving inclusion, embracing differences, and being non-judgmental. I am Tripti Fernandez, lead DNI Tata Power, and I'm humbled to introduce Dr. Niru Kumar, who is the recipient of Padmashree for the immense amount of work done in the field of DNI. Dr. Niru is also the national icon, the board member of Election Commission of India, a psychologist, a DNI consultant, and an NLP expert. Dr. Niru has been powerfully impacting and transforming lives through a unique blend of expertise in modern medicine, psychology, coaching skills, and NLP. She is a Mars Venus coach trained by Dr. John Gray himself, okay, who's the author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Her other international partnerships includes TGIG, which is the Gender Intelligence Group led by Barbara Annis, Future Works Institute led by Margaret Regan, Dr. Alan Richer of QED Consulting, and Jennifer Brown. Her extensive global projects and international alliances with top thoughts leaders in the field of DNI helps her bring the knowledge and the best practice from across the world to Indian context. Dr. Niru provides consulting to organizations on gender, generational diversity, working with persons with disabilities, and unconscious biases. Dr. Niru is passionate about making a difference in the field of DNI at the individual, organizational, and national level. She boldly quotes her own stories of overcoming challenges, which inspires and moves the participants profoundly. It is an honor to have you, Dr. Niru. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tripti. Good afternoon, everybody. What a delight to be here with you on such a beautiful topic. Love is in the air. We started with this lovely music. And I personally am so heartened to see that topics like this are being taken up so intensely by organizations today. There was a time we were scared to use such words because they were considered fluffy and soft and not professional. And now we are talking about such deep values. I think this was so needed. That's one of the benefits, I think, of the pandemic that's happened, that we started thinking about these human values. So, the topic of today, grateful leadership, I must begin by telling you that this is not coined by me. There is a book called Grateful Leadership. And when Tripti and I were, talking about brainstorming on what are the topics that we can speak about, we came up with this word. And suddenly it resonated with me so much because, we're going to talk about how it's such a broad canvas which encompasses so many different themes, and it's very, very expansive, really. So I have no idea what's written in that book. Going forward, I'm going to read it. But as of now, we have not picked up anything from the book. I'm going to begin by telling you a story. And this is a story of a little boy who had a brain tumor called medulloblastoma. Now, medulloblastoma is a tumor which sits between the two lobes of the brain and prevents the circulation of fluid. It is the morning of the surgery, and the little boy is coming in with his mother, hand tightly clutched. The surgeon comes out dressed in his green OT clothes to greet his patient. He comes and ruffles the hair of the boy and says, "So, champ, are you ready?" And the boy says, "Yes, and I'm not scared. My mama is scared." The surgeon takes a deep breath and realizes what a huge responsibility he has of not only saving the life of the child, but giving him a functional life where his hands and feet are moving. And he says, "Yes, I'll see you in the big bright room." With that, he goes inside the OT where the normal preparations, the clink clang, the nurses setting up the instruments, the anesthetist hooking up the machines, and the boy is wheeled in on a trolley and put on the operation table. The anesthetist begins to put him under anesthesia. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The boy is asleep. The surgeon takes a little lock of the hair before shaving it and puts it in a small Ziploc bag to send it to the mom, because he knew it was the first hair. First hair, first teeth, they're important. The surgery begins. The surgeon has deft hands. He's removing the tumor. The suction tubes are taking away any excess blood or fluid. All is going well. Till suddenly, hell breaks loose. One of the suction tubes hits a vein, and there's a gush and fountain of blood all over. The surgeon quickly tries to find the vein, not able to find the vein because there's so much blood, he can't see anything. The blood is dripping. The nurses are sponging from the top, the sides, the bottom. The blood keeps on flowing. They're just not able to find the vein. The anesthetist says, "Hurry, there's too much blood loss." The surgeon is perspiring now, really trying, desperately trying to find the vein. Not able to find the vein. The anesthetist says, "We're losing him. The heartbeat is going down. Hurry, please hurry." The surgeon is still trying, not able to find. And the heart stops. The surgeon closes his eyes and takes a deep breath and asks his higher mind to tap into all the wisdom and experience that he's ever had. He reaches inside and feels for the vein. He finds it. They clip it. The bleeding stops. They try to resuscitate the boy back, and tick, 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 the heartbeat comes back. This is a true story told by the neurosurgeon, Dr. James Doty, that when the surgeon found the vein, his eyes were closed. Now I'm going to pause a moment while you write in the chat box what this story said to you. Write in your comments in the chat box. Let's make this an interactive session. What did this story say to you? Tripti, if you get any responses, maybe you can read it out to me.
Sure, ma'am. Waiting for the people to respond.
Yeah.
We request all the participants and the audience to please do make it an interactive session by providing your thoughts on the question asked by Dr. Niru on what did you go through. Okay, so we have first response which says, my heart stopped too.
I know. It's an intense story. Okay.
Okay, it says calmness during panic situation. How important it is to hold your calm while the situation is panicky.
Yeah, calmness, because when you're panicking, you further become non-focused. Yes. Okay. It also tells me, it makes me feel that the surgeon somehow, because he was so responsible, because he really wanted to heal this boy, what he experienced at that moment of time is what we call flow. And I've seen many surgeons say that when I'm operating, somebody else, it seems like some other power gets into my fingers. And it's not me. Artists say that, musicians say that, dancers say that. Many of you may have experienced the flow yourself. If you have, just write a yes in the chat box. When you feel that somebody else is performing, or you feel a flow of creativity and you're yourself amazed at that. Where did this come from? It also just lifts up your vibrational level. And what comes out is a masterpiece even to you. I have experienced it a number of times in my sessions, in my one-to-one coaching. Sometimes when I'm doing one-to-one coaching, and there are times when I'm also tired and I'm just drooping a little bit, or maybe even feeling a little drowsy, and suddenly there is a switch. Something happens, and I feel a lot of information and answers just pouring into my head. It literally feels as if somebody is pouring it in for you. And then you start speaking, and then I myself am listening to myself. This is what I call the flow. The trouble is that when we relate it to leadership, to work, to profession, a lot of us think of ourselves as generative. We think that we, from our cognizant mind, are generating ideas. Like Ernest Hemingway said, unless the story was not writing itself, I used to put the pen down. The story writing itself. Then there was this book, Letters to a Young Poet. And it said, only be a poet if you have to, if it's an undeniable calling. Because the highest creative moments in Zen Buddhism is the empty mind. Many of you would have heard the story of the empty cup, where the Zen master kept pouring the tea. And the student said, Master, you're making a mess. The tea is just pouring out. And he said, your mind is like this full cup. First empty your cup and then come to me. Because it's the empty mind, the receptive mind, which is able to channelize the flow. But sometimes we feel so compelled as if we must know all the answers. And it's a kind of a psychic crisis when you don't want to be vulnerable. See, I do leadership sessions with so many leaders across the globe. And when I ask them, what's your biggest challenge? They say vulnerability. They don't want to appear as if they don't know all the answers. And this psychic crisis, incidentally, in our culture, is faced more by men than women. Men have an even higher demand that they must know all the answers. Sometimes they demand it just from themselves, but perhaps that's the way they have been brought up. And it's very hard for them to accept that they don't know all the answers. And now, with the world changing so much to a flat hierarchy, by the way, we must know that in India, we have a lot of power distance. One of the biggest challenges I find with leaders is the power distance. They're not ready to give that up. There are hierarchy. And even if we look at research and the Hofstede scales in India, the power distance is quite a lot more, substantially more than other parts of the world. So if we talk about flat hierarchy, what does flat hierarchy really do? It holds the space for other people's brilliance. A leadership which can hold the space for other people's brilliance. I don't think there's a better definition of leadership. And that also assumes, you automatically assume the other person's genius. See, in the story of the surgeon, there's another point, and that is that in the crevices of the brain is stored all the information or experience that we've ever had, but it's not accessible to us all the time because the brain filters information. If all the information is thrown to us all the time, we'll go nuts, we'll go bonkers. So it's natural property of the brain to filter. And that's good for that particular time. But it also leads to biases, and it also leads to us using a much smaller part of our brain than we actually have capacity to. Science today knows that we are just scratching the surface of the brain. Everybody wants to learn how to use the whole brain. Now, as leaders, when we start thinking about and assuming the other person's genius, and we start thinking that they're only scratching 10% of their brain or 20% of their brain, then we know the potential that there is there for them to bloom into their full genius. And when you hold that space for them to bloom into their full genius, that's when there are enough and more studies which show us that people rise up. When there are people who are believing in them, people rise up. You must have heard about that study of school children where the teachers were told, these are a group of brilliant students and you're supposed to groom them more. Actually, they were a random mix. And then when they did a control study, they found that those students whom the teacher believed were brilliant actually started performing brilliantly. So when somebody holds the space for our brilliance, we bloom. Just take a moment to think, who in your life held the space for your brilliance and you actually bloomed? And you can write your responses in the chat box. And when someone does see that brilliance in you, that is the namaste. That is the salute. That is to recognize. Recognize, recognize. See, many times I as a coach and a therapist have experienced that when somebody comes to me for therapy or coaching, I'm hardly talking. I'm just listening. And at the end of the session, the person says, I feel so much better. I'm really feeling good now. I did nothing. I just held the space, right? So, I'm reminded about holding the space. I'm reminded of an incident where I was traveling in a plane. And as we were taking off, the gentleman behind me, he started saying to the crew, a girl, he said, give me water. She said, sir, we are taking off. I will serve you water in just a few minutes. He said, no, I want water now. We thought, is he unwell? But he didn't look unwell. I have paid money for this airline. She said, sir, I cannot serve you water right now. He said, tu kal ki chokri in Hindi, you young girl, you're taking me up, you're challenging me. You wait when we land. I will complain to the civil aviation minister and you will lose your job. He was being so atrocious, so rude. For some time I kept quiet and then I could keep quiet no more. And I turned to him and I said, you cannot speak to her like this. He said, what's your problem? I said, I do have a problem. And then I turned to the girl and I said, if you want me to write, you're only doing your duty. If you want me to write down somewhere, I can. She just looked at me and said, ma'am, would you do that? I said, yes, sure. She went inside. She got I could see her body straightening up. Her body straightened up, her spine straightened up, and she went inside, got a document which said, if you misbehave with the members of the crew, you are liable to persecution. Suddenly there was a strength in her. The moment she realized that there was someone holding the space for her, I must tell you, I was scared too, because that man, it was very late night, I was traveling alone, and that man really looked a gunda type. So I was scared too. But it's a kind of allyship where you're not doing it for someone. You're sharing the space. It's a common agenda, and you're sharing the space with that person. And each time that happens, you feel so grateful that you've been given this opportunity to serve. And that's exactly what I felt at the end of it. Later, the pilot came and said, would you? And I did write it for them. And this gentleman did not say anything after that. So when we allow ourselves to have that flow, when we hold the space for someone, and as the flow comes, you know what is natural with it? Gratitude. Because you're so uplifted. You're so uplifted with that flow. You know, sometimes I'm preparing a talk, and when I synthesize ideas, because I synthesize ideas from all the various experiences of 30 years that I've had, when I synthesize those ideas, I'm sitting in my room, sometimes in my bedroom, sometimes, and my husband is quite used to me suddenly going, yay! And then I'm so excited because I can feel the flow. And along with that comes immense, immense gratitude. You know, that's the time you actually start thinking out of your strategic mind. You're not irrational, but you're beyond rational. It's not just limited to rational. Now you're beyond rational. You're in a much more expansive state. I was thinking of writing a blog or maybe even a story on, I've got more out of my life than on being silly than sensible. And by silly, I meant just that I stopped thinking from my rational mind and came into a much more expansive zone where we understand that all of us are in a matrix of energy. We are all connected to each other. And when we are connected to each other, our vibration impacts the other person when it's good or bad. When we are feeling negative, it impacts. When we are feeling positive, it impacts. Right? If I feel terrible about somebody, that person gets to know it. If I feel very good and warm about somebody, even more than my words, that person gets to know from my energy. So when I'm in the flow as a leader, when I'm feeling a sense of gratitude, I'm transmitting that energy to so many people, and I'm also receiving energy from them. Look at nature. When a mother looks after a child, it's beyond rational. The way nature blooms, it's beyond rational. So really speaking, the flow brings with it a feeling of gratitude, which takes us from competition to collaboration. Okay, so Tripti, I'm going to request you to share the presentation, and I can just show a few slides.
Sure, I'll do that, but I need to go off camera, so please let me know.
Sure. Yeah, we can move on. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, you know, these are the themes you might have heard in recent times when we are talking so much about vulnerability, humility, authenticity, honesty. So just to quickly go through it, what is vulnerability? It is the strength to acknowledge that you don't have, and it's not your role to have all the answers. Then what is honesty? It's the courage to have really honest conversations. And what is humility? It is having the maturity to know that it is not up to you to say whether you're an inclusive leader, whether you're a authentic leader, it's for others to judge that. That's humility. And you're willing to accept that feedback into saying, it's not up to me. And again, I reiterate, a leader with gratitude who feels that he's been brought here to serve, to transmit information, these are natural benefits. These are natural outcomes that come along with it. Can we have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, again, you might have seen this slide before. I just want to take a moment to talk about a few barriers that prevent us from being in the grateful flow. Now, when you look at this picture about equity and equality, we say it's not about a level playing ground. It's not about equal opportunity. It's about understanding the specific needs. What's the point of all three of them being at the fence and not being able to see the game? And therefore, when you distribute the boxes in a particular way, you're looking at the specific needs and everybody can see the game. And when we bring it to the context of inclusion and organizational dynamics, and we say equity has two aspects of it. One is understanding specific needs, and second is to make up for the backlog of the past. I have a few people, maybe more than few people, who really vehemently object to this concept. I've had people tell me, why should I give up my box? It is up to me, and who can take away my box? I've had others saying, well, I'm not philanthropic. I don't want to do that. I've worked my way up here. I've worked hard, and now I want to get the benefits. I'm not here distributing boxes. This brings us to the concept of privilege. What is privilege? So let's see the next slide for that. And I'll tell you a little story. This is a story of an elephant and a mouse who are locked in one room. Now, the elephant needs to know nothing about the mouse, whereas the mouse needs to know every single move of the elephant. Where does it sit? Where does it eat? Where does it take a walk? Because one giant foot of the elephant can simply obliterate and trample the mouse. So it has to be working and thinking and calculating all the time, and it can get so exhausting. We can relate to that, can't we? Because this is the dynamics of privilege, where there are certain people who have natural privilege, and we know that the most privileged person on planet Earth is a straight, middle-aged, white man. Right? So again, the different responses to privilege. Why should I give up my box? I've done enough. Or are they willing to enter into a place of humility and empathy, where you share that space with the people of the non-dominant groups for some time before everyone can move into a positive direction? Right? So I've seen both sides. I've seen leaders who are very humble, who are very grateful, who are very vulnerable, and who take deep responsibility for sharing that space. And I've seen others who do not. Next slide, please. So that brings us to the topic of psychological safety. It's a topic which is exploding in Google. Everybody is suddenly talking about psychological safety. But it also shows us that it was one of the greatest needs. What is psychological safety? If the people of the dominant groups, if the authentic, grateful leader is able to provide that space, there must be psychological safety. Psychological safety is the belief that you will not be punished or humiliated for bringing your whole self to work, asking questions, challenging norms, expressing concerns, experimenting with unproven actions, and admitting your mistakes. This term was coined by Amy Edmondson. She did a research on hospitals where she found that the nurses who were able to challenge the doctors on dosages of drugs, the death rate was far lower than other hospitals where the nurses were not able to challenge. And then there were several more researchers. Google did a research called Project Aristotle, and they found that one of the most critical determinants of high-performing teams was psychological safety. See, when we don't have psychological safety, we cover. We try to underplay certain aspects of ourselves, and that drains so much energy. I coach thousands of leaders, thousands of people, and so many will tell me, even in the most senior positions, the imposter syndrome that women especially, or people of underrepresented groups go through, where they think that their success is a fluke and it will come crashing down like a pack of cards one day. It's so prevalent, it's almost a pandemic. And the reason is because they don't feel the psychological safety to be able to do so. Things are changing. There are more and more leaders now who are willing to talk about this. As I do debriefs, assessments, and coaching with leaders, many of them are now really receptive and say, okay, tell me. When they see their own blind spots, they say, tell me what can I do about it? How can I change this? So the movement is on, but it really depends on each individual. It's not only the people at the top level who have to work towards providing that psychological safety. I think it's each one of us. Each one of us, when we provide that space for another person's brilliance, when we provide that space of psychological safety to each other, and not look for moments where we can bring the other person down, that's the time when the climate changes. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the concept of what is allyship. So allyship, simply speaking, you can read the definition, what's written on the screen. But to me, allyship simply means a person or position of power having the back of an underrepresented person. Now, again, I come back to the flow and I come back to the gratitude part. If you're in that zone where you're feeling the vibrance, where you're feeling the interconnectedness, you will automatically try to correct something which is not appropriate. Your attention will automatically go towards the person who's not able to come out on their own, and at that particular moment needs your support. And you'll be standing there giving that support. Right? Okay, next slide, please. So here are these are some of the benefits, being an ally, and of course, a sense of belonging. The Maslow's triangle, which says, after roti, kapda, and makan, what is a human being's greatest need? A human being's greatest need is a sense of belonging, where you feel that I belong here and I'm accepted here. Next slide. So what is belonging? It's a sense of shared identity, a shared destiny, the belief that what happens to you might also happen to me, a sense of interdependence in which we rely on each other, and a general sense of shared values, an ability for people to feel able to be themselves, something which we all crave for. Next slide, please. A very interesting experiment called the rat park. So this was in the early 1970s. What they did was they took a bunch of rats, about 16 to 18 rats, and they fed them water laced with morphine. All the rats got addicted to it. Then they kept certain rats isolated, and the others, they put them in this beautiful rat park where there were wheels, toys, where they could mix with each other, where they could mate and everything. The same 2 bottles were given to the isolated rats, one of plain water, one laced with morphine, and it was also given to the rats in the rat park. The findings were astounding. The ones which were isolated kept drinking the morphine water. The ones in the rat park drank the plain water that refused the morphine water, because the sense of belonging was so strong and it gave them so much fulfillment, they didn't need the morphine. This is rats. Imagine human beings who are thinking beings and who can really think this over, What a great difference it makes when we have that sense of love and belonging. Next slide, please. Very quickly, I'll show you this study and then we'll close the presentation and do some interaction. So this is a study done by Emmons and McCullough, which said that they studied 4 groups for 3 months. And what they found was the first group started writing things that they were grateful for each day. The second group had to think of problems they faced each day so that they could improve them and not make the same mistake. The third group, they thought of things in which they were superior to others compared to others. And the fourth group was a control group where they were just doing general journaling. After 3 months, when they did the study, they found that the first group was the one which was doing the maximum good. And they even tracked them for a few years. Next slide, please. This is what they found. Higher supervisor appraisal results, better physical health, less number of visits to the doctor, and highest promotions in this group. Physical, emotional, business, professional benefits. When you feel that sense of gratitude, we also call it a gratitude journal, where sometimes people write a gratitude journal every day before going to sleep. 3 things that they were grateful for. And it's clearly seen that people who do this experience a much greater sense of well-being, physical health, and fulfillment in life. Maybe I can just see that slide of law of attraction, Tripti, after this. Yeah, okay, this one. So, you know, it also brings about, I'm a very, very firm believer of the law of attraction, that gratitude is the doorway of abundance. When you feel that vibration, that flow, that high vibration of gratitude, you attract more and more of the same thing. If you're cribbing, if you're angry, if you're feeling my boss is rotten, my workplace is rotten, there is absolutely, absolutely no doubt about it that you will attract the same. See, whatever I have told you till now, or what I'm telling you here, it's out of my deep practical experience of many, many years of my own life and that of my people I have coached and trained. This is not something theoretical out of books that I'm telling you. I firmly believe in the law of attraction. I firmly believe in the flow. I firmly believe in the interconnected matrix. I firmly believe in the level of vibration. When you shoot your rocket of desire from a high plane of vibration, it has to happen. When you shoot it from a low vibration, you will be frustrated and it will take very, very long to happen. We can stop the sharing. I'll take just a few minutes more to tell you 1 or 2 more incidents, and then we can have some questions. You know, I was traveling to plants for PepsiCo. I was asked to travel to plants. And because I had done so much work with the global leaders, with the rest of the organization, I couldn't say no when they really wanted me to go to the plants, but it was tough. The roads were tough, the conditions, you know, sometimes there used to be no women's toilets on the way. I had to use male toilets so many times on the way. Embarrassing, difficult, tough. And I would say, look, don't send me to the plants so much. Okay, I'll go once in 5-6 months. But they said, we really want you to go to all the plants and cover it. And they would cajole me, they would coax me and all of that. And I would be fighting with them about dates and about intervals and all of that. One day, I went to a plant where the plant manager got tears in his eyes. And he said to me, you have really taught us and shown us the true meaning of diversity today. I was embarrassed to ask. He said, there's so much of talk going on, but I didn't understand why we are doing it. I didn't even understand the true meaning. But I'm feeling so grateful that you have told me this today. And then he says, a person of your level and seniority, learning from you has been such an experience. What hit me at that time was that in these remote areas, these are the people who really need, they haven't had so much exposure. These are the people who really need that information, these conversations, these inspirations. I've been given the opportunity to come here. Why have I been cribbing? And suddenly my mind changed 360 degrees. Next morning, I wrote a LinkedIn post, a Facebook post, and I said, I thank PepsiCo for giving me this opportunity. And all the people who were working with me, they were so surprised for reading it. They said, well, she went in a different frame of mind yesterday. What happened overnight? But literally, I started feeling immense gratitude. After that, I traveled to many plants for Hindalco, for Vedanta Group, for many groups. And I would go there happily. You know, slowly in life, I started feeling every day that I was working for the universe. And I was filled with this sense of gratitude at all times. When recently I got the Padmashree, see, okay, let me say this. I don't know, some of you may be knowing it. I have a disability. I got polio in my leg from age 3. It was very hard growing up in India with a disability. And I went through my fair share of struggles. But when I came to this point of starting to feeling that I'm working for the universe, suddenly I was even grateful for my challenges. I say this from the heart. It all looked like a beautiful tapestry woven together. This was the purpose. Oh, I understand now why I went through those challenges. I had to do this work. And it brought in me the deep understanding and the empathy. And that gave me such a strong sense of purpose. When I received the Padmashree Award, and as I was walking up to receive it from the President of India, I felt it's beyond words actually. I felt such a sense of responsibility. I felt such a sense of deep purpose. I felt so much of integration of every single moment in my life. That all of this was for this purpose, that I need to go on doing this work till the last day of my life. Physical barriers don't hold me back. In 2018, I fractured my good leg. It got shattered into 4 pieces. I was completely bedridden. People told me she's never going to be able to get up again. But my purpose was so strong. I got myself a stair lift, I got myself a mobility scooter, and I started going everywhere in the world. The flow of energy, the flow of gratitude just kept me going, and I won't stop at all. I'm not 100% back to the pre-surgery levels, but it still doesn't stop me because I feel that gratitude every single moment. So that's all I have to say. Happy to hear from you. Any questions?
We would encourage participants to please do post in your thoughts, your questions, any comments that you would like to get addressed. Feel free to post your comments.
While the questions are coming up, I would like to take a moment to mention Take the Lead. And I'm sure there are some people from the Take the Lead program who are watching this. So with the Tata Group, we did 2 programs called Take the Lead, which were the women developmental journeys. And we started finding those groups are still active on WhatsApp, though we did it about 2 years back. And what we found is that immediately after the program, the women started putting themselves out there. They started asking for positions. They started doing the personal branding. And I think all that we did was to hold that space for the brilliance, and it started giving such fabulous results.
All right, so ma'am, by the time we are receiving any of the comments or any questions, I would request you to pick up something more. You know, your stories are so heartening and they're wonderful to hear. So anything, we would like to hear more from you.
Right. I'll tell you one more story. Then if there's a question, I'll stop. Otherwise, I'll tell you two more stories. So I'll tell you a story about what they did at Vodafone. So to encourage the women employees, they invited the mothers and mother-in-laws of the women employee. And when they came in, they really thanked the mothers for bringing up such wonderful girls. And they thanked the mother-in-laws for giving them the support to be able to come for work. They tracked these women 5 years till 5 years. And what they found that the attrition rate of these women was much lower compared to other women. The gratitude which was shown to the mother and the mother-in-law inspired them to do even more and give even more support. So this is one story. And you want me to tell another? All right. I'll tell you a story of Nelson Mandela. So, way back in the apartheid days, there was this Mercedes-Benz plant in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. And they had these black people there, which were really badly treated as far as their wages, their rights, the work hours, the work conditions. It was really bad. And South Africa was the worst performing plant in the whole world. It took about 90 days for them to produce a car with 68 faults, whereas in Germany, it took about 14 days with about 9 to 10 faults. Now, a German leader was sent there to turn around the situation. And he was told that he had to work within a time period, otherwise the plant would shut down. And when he looked at the situation there, he said, I can't possibly do it in this time. What can I do to bring about that change and then inspiration? And then he got into the flow. And he had this brilliant idea that Nelson Mandela was being released from prison at that time. And he said, let's build a car for Mandela. When he announced that to the workers, the roof lifted up with their jubilance. They were so excited. They were so happy. And they all set about to work. And you know what happened? They beat the world record. They built the car in 9 days compared to Germany's 14 days with only 8 faults. Just because the leader developed that flow, that matrix, that sense of gratitude, that sense of purpose. And it was not temporary. Even years later, when they measured that, South Africa, Port Elizabeth, continued to be the best performing plant. Such is the power of this energy. Tripti, any questions till now?
Yes. We have a couple of comments and a couple of questions as well. So Purnima says she's absolutely proud of you. Rakhi says just gratitude that we got an opportunity to hear from you and absolutely inspiring. A question which says, how do you find that purpose in life towards which we should work?
Yeah. I know. And it's not always easy. So, I have sometimes people feeling very restless. I've not found my purpose. And the first thing I say to them is, whatever comes to your mind right now is okay. It doesn't have to be written in stone. You can revise your purpose. You can revisit your purpose. But the 2-3 things which work best for me to identify what's the purpose. A purpose is something for which you feel that you cannot do without it. The work that you're doing, you cannot do without it. You simply have to do it. It's like the pen writing. Hemingway said, the pen writing itself. You simply have to do it. When you get that flow of energy, that flow of excitedness, you get up in the morning and you want to go for work, then probably you're fulfilling your purpose. Now, sometimes we are not able to fulfill our purpose, even though it is our purpose, because we ourselves are holding ourselves back, because we are looking at all the things that are going wrong, like that study with the group number 2, which was only looking into problems. When we are looking at all the things which are going wrong, we're not going to be able to find the flow. I'm not saying just accept things as they are and don't do anything to change them. But do what is to be done, and the rest of the time, Go back to a high vibration, bounce back to a high vibration. Find the good in wherever you are. Find the benefit of wherever you are. That's when you'll be able to shoot your rocket of desire. That's when you'll be able to explore your purpose. So the other thing about purpose is, see, each of us has a unique gift. Find out what is your unique gift. Find out who is your destiny client. By client, I mean your stakeholders can be your client. Anybody can be your client. Find out how can you serve them better with your unique gift. I usually take a whole session on that, but these are some little pointers on how you can find your purpose. Maybe someday we get a chance to do a whole session on finding your purpose.
Okay, another participant wants to know if there is something which is happening for developing the young generation or the preschool boys on gender equality, ideas that the person is, it's important for us.
Yeah. So as of now, we should, but we don't have it in our school curriculums. Of course, schools and colleges have started talking about it much more. But I feel happy to share. I was recently invited to Labasna, which is the Civil Services Institute, where all the civil services students are trained. I was invited there to give a keynote. And I spoke to the director and I said, it's so important for us to introduce this into the leadership curriculum of these students, of the civil services students. Again, the flow, miracles happen. The director said, oh, what a timely thing you're saying. I was supposed to go back that day. He says, can you stay back till Monday, please? It was in Missouri. And I said, oh, well, he said, we have a meeting. I stayed back. We had this whole meeting about the curriculum. And then they asked me to do a train the trainer and give them a full module for the civil services students on diversity and inclusion and gender. We trained 30 of their top leaders from a secretary level, IAS officers, IPS officers from around India. And now it's going to be part of the curriculum forever. I think these are the steps we all have to take wherever we get the opportunity of influencing educational institutes to start taking it up as part of the curriculum.
Great. What is the India's context in D&I right now?
Sorry, in?
What is India's context in D&I right now, in diversity and inclusion right now?
All right. See, when I began my work 15 years back, I was perhaps the first person to start the discussion of diversity and inclusion in corporate India. There was nobody talking about it then. It's very heartening to see that it's a wave and a movement now. But at that time, it was only gender. It took me so much effort to try and tell people. We did conferences each year. We still do. And our next conference is on 13th to 15th May. And I invite you all for it. We will send you the details. And I started doing conferences where we started inviting world leaders to really open up the Indian mind to say diversity is more than gender. It's not just gender. People would say, so we have diversity in our team, and they would mean we have women in our team. But slowly things began to change. There is a watch out now. What I'm sensing is that we're going too fast now. We are now, because of the buzz, we are now talking about inclusive leadership, inclusion, and we are neglecting gender. We are not yet ready to neglect gender. Gender is still a major theme for us. In 2017, in the World Economic Forum, which measures the global gender gap on 4 parameters: the economic health, the financial, the political, and the physical health of women versus men. And in 2017, we are anyway way down. The best country in the world is Norway. And in 2017, we further went down. The tragedy is that in the pandemic times, it was in the front page of our newspapers about 3 months back, we have gone down even further. I do a global group of people from Aditya Birla Group. And when I show them their locations and their countries and say, these are your locations in the World Economic Forum, I feel so embarrassed about India being at the bottom. So I would say if you ask me India's position, there are a few themes which still need a lot of work. Gender being a very important one. There is the power distance, the hierarchy, and everything that we spoke today is a reflection and some solutions and some way ahead to break that pattern of that hierarchy where voices from down below are not heard, where every voice is not heard, where people are hesitant to bring their ideas, where diversity of thought is not leveraged. So that is still a problem. And the third one, which we never talk about, is the caste system. And it needs speaking about. If we think it lies outside the virtual walls of the organization, it doesn't. It permeates because people carry with them their views. I knew an organization where the entire top management were Brahmins. What a coincidence. Vandana Sethia from the Indian girls hockey team, they lost and stones were thrown on a house that why was a Dalit girl allowed to go to the hockey team. So many such things, incidents about caste system as well. So I would say these three areas are still, and then fourth one being the LGBTQ plus conversation. These are themes which are still nascent in India.
What is the first step of becoming grateful leadership as per your, I'm sorry, the question is a little difficult. So it says, what is the first step of becoming grateful leadership as per you for the women employees?
Okay. So I'm assuming that the question is, how can women employees become grateful leaders? Is that your interpretation too, Tripti?
I'm not getting it right. So what is the first step of becoming?
Let me just say what's the first step, and then we'll come to women leadership as well. Yes. The first step of grateful leadership is to really think of yourself in service of the people you lead. It's not like you're in a race and you have to win the race and you have to be ahead of all others. It has to be, how can you build your team's capacity to all together win the race? The concept of holding the brilliance, believing the brilliance in everybody, and then emptying your cup to feel that creativity and the flow. Because the moment gratitude will lead to opening up of that valve where you get that flow. The moment you start looking around you and say, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm so grateful that I got to do a little bit for this person, or through me, the universal forces worked and I was able to do from the smallest possible thing. Keep a diary, keep a journal, and call it the Grateful Leader's Diary, and write in it every day. What was the opportunity you got today to be a leader who could hold someone's brilliance, who could hold the space for someone? Do that every day. And you will watch that valve opening up where you can channelize the most creative forces. Understand that we are in a matrix. Be open to receiving and giving generously, opening, radically generous to giving and sharing information. Start with this, and I'm sure you will start seeing the magic and the change happening. For women leaders, if you still face biases, if you still feel that the world is not fair for you, keep taking the steps you need to take. Keep taking the actions you need to take. But at the same time, start feeling rather than being bitter, being angry. Understand that the people who are not being inclusive are also product of their upbringing. So start feeling the good, look out for be the finders of the benefits and the good things rather than the finder of faults. The benefit finder. When you find the benefit finder, the blessing finder, you'll see how the path starts lighting up in front of you, how it starts clearing up in front of you. It happened for me, and it can happen for you.
There are lots and lots of comments and questions that are coming over, but I'm afraid we will not be able to take. And I'm sorry to all the audiences who have posted such wonderful questions. Maybe we could, post them to you, Doctor. And we have a beautiful comment here which says, it's amazing session, can feel the energy and I'm in the flow. Thank you so much, especially discussing the law of attraction and gratitude.
I'm so happy to hear that. So happy.
Yes, so Doctor, there are a lot of questions, and I'm sure this will go on and on because the more we are listening to you, we want to have more from you. But as we come towards the end, respecting everyone's time. We really thank you, Doctor, for giving us such great insights, which also spoke about gratitude is a doorway of abundance, and I completely agree with that. Give what you wish to take. Thank you very much. We appreciate your presence, your time, and your thoughts for sharing with us.
Thank you so much, Tripti. It was such a pleasure to be here.
We thank all our audience for being a part of this conversation today, and be glued. Tomorrow we meet again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Doc.